All right. So this is my first official Ascension with A Course in Miracles on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. It's 10 o'clock for me Mountain Time from my new home, which is in Colorado. Now, this is not exactly where I'm going to be living. This is my daughter's house, but I am now in the city that I am going to be calling home for a while. And until I'm told to move somewhere else. I am really thrilled to allow life to move me. And I used to be so methodical about where I was going to be, who I was going to be with, how long I was going to be there, how much I was going to make while I was there, what I was going to do while I was there. And looking back, my life was so planned and so many things did happen, which is wonderful. It's a testament to desires, to planning, all those wonderful things. But along the way, there were opportunities for things to have been done. You hear the little sound of my little grandson in the background. He's running around with his uncle, so they're playing back there. But part of what this incredible journey has been is to see all of the ways that we became so rigid, so structured. So it had to be a certain way, and that was it. It couldn't be any other way. So when we become that rigid in our 3D world, we call that adulting. But in the fifth dimension, in the consciousness that God is, there is no adulting. There is only being what we are, and that is an eternal, childlike being that just wants to have fun, that wants to play. And in this 3D world, we have made things so serious. We have made things so laborious and things so methodical. And if you don't do it this exact way, then you can't get ahead. Now, there are two sides to that coin, because there are a lot of things that require practice in order for us to return ourselves to our natural state. But a lot of things that we do and we think are natural, normal, we have done them because we have done them in repetition. They have been our normal practice. And in doing things over and over and over again, we have literally created a situation where most people, without a whole lot of repetition, can't wake themselves up from this illusion. And we think that the drudgery is the reality, but it is not. The drudgery is a distraction from the ultimate reality that we have been invited to enter into. And as the Course in Miracles says, all are invited, but not everybody is going to do what it takes to free themselves, because to free ourselves, we first have to admit we have been in prison. And to admit that we are in prison, we would have to admit that we're not free. And to admit that we're not free, we would have to take an inventory. Well, who do we give our freedom to? Who do we get our power to? And that is something that most humans do not want to do. And yet, the paradox to that is that we are so free that we gave our freedom away. We are so free that we entered a third dimension planet, that we entered this reality where we substitute truth for illusion, where we substitute love for fear. We willingly, freely entered into this reality, and this particular reality requires that we give up our freedom. So it requires a lot of spiritual maturity to really get to the point that we understand that the way out of prison is to admit that we put ourselves in prison, not to make ourselves wrong, but just to see how powerful we are. Because if we don't like the way things are here anymore, if we're done with the way the 3D world operates, we need to take our, powerful little asses out of prison and go take them outside and go play together with new friends, with people who are aligning at the same frequency, and co-create a new thing. And it's okay if we want to create another kind of prison, maybe a system where we enter, but we are loving and kind to each other. We can do that too. But why stay in the very prison that we say we don't like, and then admit that, or go around saying we don't have power to change it? Well, it's just the way that it's always been. It's the way it was when my parents were kids. It's just how it's been for 2,000 years. Look at Jesus. He couldn't change the world. Well, yes, change has been happening, but it's happening in the minds of those who are questioning what's going on. So in coming to Colorado, I'm just open. What is it that I am here to do? I do not want to live my life. As a matter of fact, I pretty much stopped this a couple of years ago, living my life planned out. I don't want that. To me, that is imprisoning me. That is telling me how it's going to look, what my retirement's supposed to look like, what my life as an adult is supposed to look like. I don't want anything that is defining what it is that I am experiencing. So it's with a lot of excitement that I say, here I am in Frisco, in Colorado. Now, this is my daughter's home. That's why you hear my little grandson in the background. He is back there playing, but I am found a place to rent a room in this home of condo of a lovely gentleman, and sweet man. So he's young, party whippersnapper. So he'll be out partying all the time, and I'll have the place all to myself. So I'm excited about that. But here we are on Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining me. And I wanted to share with you, you're the first ones that I'm going to share this with, but I have been feeling this renewed sense to revitalize my old interviews. I did interviews for many years called Align with Laina. And I'm feeling a call to begin the process to start conversations. But what I'm feeling led to, and some of you already know that attend these Ascension with the Course in Miracles calls, is for me, my role is in this incarnation, my purpose, my God-given purpose, is to simplify what the awakening process is about. And there is no way to make it simple if you don't understand your ego. If you don't understand the mind that blocks you from the truth of who you are, you cannot get out of prison. You cannot get out of the insanity. You have to understand the ego, because the ego is in essence the prison warden. It's the one that keeps us stuck inside of the repetitive patterns, hoping we will experience something different. So for me, it's become really clear that not only teaching about the ego, which I've been doing now, some of you know, for a very long time, over 15 years, it's what I've always taught. However, more than ever, it feels like this is a time to be very deliberate that is the conversation. We need to learn to shift and lift from ego to God. And that is only for those who are interested. I used to want to share my message with everybody. Everybody needed to hear how magnificent they were. But you know what? If people don't want to hear that, they don't want to hear that. We are all divine beings. We can all choose to stay small, to stay imprisoned in a mind that is delusional. It's okay. Why? Because we're free. We have total freedom. As a matter of fact, for me, every year tends to have a theme. Don't ask me about past years because I don't remember that. But this year is free in 2023. We are so free that we can remain in bondage. We can remain believing that there's external sources, powers, people who have our best interests at heart. We can be that delusional if we want to. But we are also free to say no more to the insanity of believing that there's external authorities. This is a year where, for me, it's probably going to be the biggest line in the sand that we've ever experienced. Jesus was a big line in the sand. That's why they even redid the calendar. They even renumbered the calendar, because his birth was so monumental. There was a being who incarnated with a very deliberate message, and the message was, we are here as expressions of God. You and I are exactly the same. Jesus was telling this to us. He knew that he was one with God. He knew that we were one with God. I and the Father and Mother God are one. That message was necessary, and it's taken 2,000 years for humanity to, little by little, through what we call, spirituality or New Age or Gnosticism or mysticism or metaphysics, the study of what we really truly are, divine beings who are here on this planet on a mission. We are here to bring love, to bring light, and elevate this planet. If you look around and you observe that there's a lot of insanity taking place, is this where you want to remain? Not me. I don't want to remain in insanity. So therefore, I must be the change that I want to experience, so that as I clear my mind and become sane again, I can then connect with those who are sane and co-create that new world. Now, there are lots of teachings. There are, tons of information now. Why? Because we're in the ascension process. This is the decade, the 2020 decade, the entire decade. Notice how it falls on 2020. It's about seeing clearly, perfect vision. We need to open up our eyes and see what's going on. We need to move beyond this insanity of thinking that somebody else has our best interest at heart. Not even our mother and our father always had our best interest at heart. I've been a coach for a very long time. Most of the people that I have worked with have been abused by a mother, a father, a grandfather, an uncle, a brother, a sister, somebody close to the family. So it is not, we cannot say that we can even trust our mothers and our fathers. My emotional wounding came at the hands of my parents. So we've got to get really clear that there is absolutely no more important relationship. We talked about this, some of you guys in the class last night. The most important relationship that we must learn to cultivate is a relationship with God. Because when we begin to do what Jesus did 2,000 years ago, and we come to the place that we realize I and the Father are one, in that knowingness of I and the Father, Mother, God are one, we are activating the adamantine particles, the DNA, whatever you want to call it, the frequency of truth within ourselves. It's like saying to our physical vessel plus our light body, I am ready to accept my role. And when we claim, I and the Father and Mother God are one, and you can say it however you want to say it. In A Course in Miracles, we talk about Father deliberately, because the Course in Miracles was given to us over 50 years ago, specifically to speak to those who had somewhat of a Christian mindset. So the terminology is that way for a reason. Now, when Jesus was a young man, he was Jewish, he wasn't talking Christianity. However, there was still the common understanding that the father was the ruler of the home. The father is the king, the whatever, because we were already in those hierarchical type of agreements in terms of a mass consciousness. So Jesus gave us the language that was necessary, but we need to use the language that makes sense to our heart. If God is love, if God is energy, if God is universe or spirit, I say Buddha, Baba, Bambi, it does not matter what we call it. We need to get beyond the words and go into the feelings. When we come to that place of knowing God inside, who we show up as is going to be very, very different. We show up as gentleness, as kindness. We show up as awareness, pure awareness, aware of how to move towards the light, because we will be bringing the light and we will be moving and expanding that which the light can offer. And it's always going to be beautiful and wonderful and holy. We are moving away from the contraction into this delusion that we are separate from God. God's outside of us, and some other human gets to be in charge of us. I mean, the biggest nonsense that we have been taught since we were little, that Father knows best, that Santa Claus gets to decide if I'm naughty or nice, that the government tells me when I can retire and when I can't, that I've got to go to war because the government says I go. All of these nonsensical things that have been all made up. Think about them. They were not there until somebody made them up. Who gave that person permission to make up that nonsense? But we all bought into it and we played the game. We had the experience of having the government tell us when we can and cannot retire. Okay, if it works for you, good for you. You are free to have that as an experience. If it doesn't work for you and something inside of you is saying, I prefer something different, we need to come back to listen to those desires and allow that inner voice to guide us and to move us towards the co-creation of something that is going to be different. You know, Eckhart Tolle wrote a book, I'm going to say about 15, 16, 17 years ago. It's amazing. It's been that long already. But he wrote a book called A New Earth. A New Earth. If you read that book again today, you will see how relevant it is for today, but it came to us 15, 16 years ago for a reason. People were waking up. We needed to understand what was it that we were moving toward. And a new earth is referenced in so many sacred texts because there is another way of doing things. But humanity has been conditioned into that this is the only real way. Everything else is fluff and imagination and way out there and metaphysical, and you shouldn't waste your time with that. So we've been conditioned away from what is natural, which is activating our imagination. Because if you were to sit a whole bunch of children together today, right now, get a whole bunch of 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, maybe even 9, 10-year-olds, and ask him, how do you see the world being a better place? They would not only tell us exactly what all of us adults need to listen to have a better world, but they most likely would show us how to do that, because they are the portals through which new inventions, new ideas, new ways of being in the world are coming through them. We just keep them from expressing that because we suppress their imagination, their creativity, when we dumb them down in the school systems, when we dumb them down in the parental ideas that we have. You know, we are operating with archetypes, father, mother, child archetypes. And when we put everybody in their respective place and we expect them to live into that, we need to stop the archetypes. We need to let everybody be an individuated, unique expression of God, no matter what that looks like. So today, I didn't want to continue what we had been talking about before, which of course was one of a very important lesson. And in those specific lessons that we were talking about, I think it was lesson 168. But anyways, I'm not going to go look for that. That particular lesson was about bringing us into more conscious awareness of what's really going on here, and to realize that we don't need to defend ourselves with anybody in this world, because to defend ourselves is to waste our time trying to convince somebody about something that they're not interested in. If somebody's arguing with you with what you know to be your truth, then it's a waste of time to try and get them to see it the way that you perceive it, that you experience it. We are at a time where your actions are going to speak louder than your words. They always have. But now more than ever, don't be looking for people who are talking about how things should be. Look for the ones who are living it, who are embodying that truth, who are not talking about being kind, but are kind, who are not talking about honesty, but are transparent. The ones who are talking about rules, laws, and regulations that are man-made, but the ones that are following the laws of God that are equal for all beings. So today, what I felt inspired to, well, when I opened it up, because this is the way it always works, I was taken to chapter 18 in the text. And the reason I do these calls, Ascension with a Course in Miracles, is because I have found no other text that is as clear to me in giving us the steps to unravel our ego, to help us see exactly how the ego gets created, what supports it in its dysfunction, what keeps it active and alive in the illusion that it has created that we actually believe is the truth. No other text to me breaks down the ego the way A Course in Miracles does. So of course, if we are looking to transcend the ego and to ascend into the frequency of God, we need to understand the ego. There's no way to move to God without understanding what blocks us from God. It's simple semantics. It's basic understanding. So one of the things that was heavy on my heart for a while was so many, because I was in the spiritual community, so many spiritual people who have spirituality in their head, but they are not really embracing the liberation that could come to them if they understood their ego, because all of our egos become spiritualized first. The ego takes the truth about God. The ego takes, oh yeah, I and the Father are one, absolutely. And it makes it its own in a very selfish, greedy way. And what happens when the ego takes over spiritual truths, period, doesn't have to be spiritual, it's all spirit. I mean, it cannot not be spirit. There's only spirit here. But the ego takes truth and utilizes it in a very deceptive way to convince the others that I know something I know nothing about. But yet I pretend that I do know everything because I teach it, I talk about it, I wrote a book, they made a movie out of me. I was New York Times bestseller, whatever. I was Time Man of the Year, Woman of the Year. Look at me, I got a big award. I'm what is they call that? Nobel Peace Prize winner. All of those things are superficial ways for us to designate this one knows something, this one doesn't. We are almost done with that. We are moving to a time where you are going to feel the essence, the truth, the transparency, the integrity, the gentleness, the generosity, the open-mindedness, the joy of a person by being in their presence, not by what you read about them. So the days of walking the talk are upon us. And those who really, truly see their ego and are willing to do what it takes to transcend their ego are courageous beyond measure. Because when we face our own ego, what we're having to say to ourselves is, who I think I am is not so. Who I believe myself to be is completely wrong. And it's wrong only in one sense, that it blocks the truth of who I am. It's not wrong that I'm Laina. It's not wrong that, Ronald Reagan was Ronald Reagan. It's not wrong that Jesus was Jesus. There's nothing wrong with playing those roles. But Jesus did not get sidetracked in being the character Jesus. And for me, most of my life, I was sidetracked playing the character Laina until I had the opportunity to begin this process of awakening. So let's look at chapter 18. The title of this is called The Passing of the Dream. And I call this Ascension with A Course in Miracles because I take what the Course in Miracles says and I just allow for Source to speak through me, God, whatever you want to call it, to speak through me, to bring these words into maybe greater clarity, into an aliveness that helps us rise above. That's what Ascension is. Let's begin to look at things from a higher perspective. The top of the mountain, as it's taught in the book called A Course of Love. Many people, I know lots of people in the AA program, Alcoholic Anonymous, and they take some say 30,000, some say 50,000 view. Go up beyond what you can see so that you can see a broader picture. So here in this chapter 18, the only way you can understand the passing of the dream is if you have expanded yourself enough to understand a couple of things. One thing that we need to understand is that we have two voices inside of us. There's our divine self, which is our eternal self. This is the truth of who we are. And there is the human conditioned self. Until we have everything down to two voices, it's going to be very challenging to see the ego. There are lots of beautiful teachings that help us break down the personality, and some give it numbers, some give it words. The Enneagram, there's so many, I can't even think of them. Those are very helpful, but eventually you still have to whittle them down to only two voices. The voice of the Holy Spirit, which is what the Course in Miracles teaches, which means you're listening to God, and the voice of the ego, which is everything that blocks God. So one is of love, one is of fear, and it only activates fear because it's blocking love. So to understand the passing of the dream, you need to know that humanity is shifting. You need to have expanded yourself far out enough to see that this little planet, this is not all that there is. Most people walk around and all they're looking at, paying attention, is their own personal lives. They're not really even paying attention to the community. They're not even paying attention to the state. They're not even paying attention to the country. They're not even paying attention to the continent. They're not even paying attention that they are on a little planet, a little ball spinning through space that is part of a grander group of planets, that we are a small solar system inside of the Milky Way, that is something grander, that is inside of even more universes. If your mind is contracted into only thinking about your own personal life, you haven't quite seen your ego enough. Until you can begin to care about your fellow brothers and sisters, to really widen back and move beyond petty things in our everyday life, we are not really ready for the passing of the dream, because we're holding on to the dream. And that's what's so important to understand here. The dream is the illusion. It's a made up idea that this is who we really are and this is how we should live our lives. The passing of the dream is a letting go of that and saying, you know what? Who I am is going to be informed from within. And who I believe, in the people that I believe, the places that I participate in activities with, or whatever, church or whatever you might want to call it, maybe it's learning about the Constitution, you are going to go to, because you resonate with the truth that is being shared. And there's not a single thing in this illusion that is not going to be turned upside down, so that those who really want to see the contrast, the passing of the dream, can see clearly all of the ways that we have participated in our own deception. So, for example, when we select a president, and we vote for this person and we say, okay, you're in charge, you tell us what to do, we're participating in giving our power away to a person who may or may not have us, be interested in us. Because you see, just as each and every one of us can have very narrow focus, it's all about me, so can somebody in a position as a president. So can somebody as a monarch. They can be very selfish. They can be very corrupt. They can be very much motivated by money, not by profits, not people. So it doesn't matter where we are. If our perception is all about me, selfish and greedy, whether you are the one voting for the president or you're the president-elect, it does not matter. We're operating from the voice of the ego within. And that is one of the things that we have to understand. The reason the world is falling apart, the systems are falling apart, they're caving under the weight of their own greed, is because every single being on this planet has the ability to block God. Period. God creates us to love one another. That's why we were given simple commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you'd like them do unto you. Very simple. If we all abided by that, which actually it was the intention of our founding fathers, believe it or not, all those hundreds of years ago, our founding fathers received guidance that was put into a document that was so perfect, because it was saying all men are created equal by the same creator, acknowledging that there's one source, acknowledging that we all come from that source, meaning we all must be made of the same substance and endowed with the same inalienable rights. God didn't pick, the Germans to be happy and the Russians to be miserable. It wasn't done that way. It was done equally for all. So no matter where you are on this planet, you can pick and choose to because you're free to live your life honoring that you're eternal in liberty, because you are free, and to experience happiness. Those are innate abilities, innate rights, innate aspects of each and every one of us. But we get trained out of that at a very young age, and religion is a big part of that. So to be able to understand that the dream is going to pass, the delusion is going to pass, being brainwashed into giving your power away is coming to the foreground by our seeing what happens when we do that. Right now, the world is being divided, has been divided, and we're going to continue to see this division. And it's going to intensify a lot more very deliberately, because humans, when we get stuck inside of the illusion, it's really hard for us to see in color. We only see black and white until you are connected to your source, until you are tapped into your creativity. Do you really return to seeing in color? And I'm not just saying literally seeing in color, but being able to see the world as a beautiful tapestry. You need to have a clarity that we are part of something beautiful, something holy, something benevolent. Then you can see the beauty in everything. And that being able to see the beauty in everything begins when we start this process of seeing beyond the illusion, to see, wow, everything that humans want to control inevitably turns into being all about money. That becomes a focus. And we were told thousands of years ago, you can only have one master, God or money, period. So the world that has been worshiping money is a world that does not know its own inner worth. And if we don't know our value, if we don't know our worth, we chase money outside of ourselves. We go looking for net worth to make up for our lack of self-worth. These are some of the bitter pills that we have to swallow when we enter this journey so that we can become aware of what this is all about. Waking up is a very violent process. It's violent within ourselves because we are shaking ourselves awake. We are loosening up all of these dark ideas that we have, that we're not good enough, that we are, we should be guilty. We should feel bad for breathing because it upset our mother, our father, our teacher, our preacher. We have all of these untruths that are stored within our field. We have to shake them up. And they don't get shaken up just because you say, okay, today, let's go shake up one of my wounds. They get shaken up when they get activated by something. This is why I say every irritation is an invitation. If you know what you're doing, you're going to use that invitation and you're going to follow it to find where within you built up a barrier to the truth that needs to be torn down. It needs to be dismantled. You need to recognize that what you thought was true is not, that what you thought was helpful is hurting you. So we have to have a level of incredible honesty to be able to allow the dream to pass. So the title of this section, section 1, is called the substitute reality. That's all that we really need to work with. We really don't need to work in understanding the real reality. The real reality is what begins to get activated inside of us when we stop paying attention to the substitute reality. So, for example, if you want to have, let's say you want to have vanilla ice cream instead of chocolate ice cream, there is no amount of making chocolate better, prettier, paint it white if you want to. That's going to make it taste like vanilla. You've got to give up the chocolate and come to the vanilla. There's just no other way around that. So we are being told there is a reality that is real, that is eternal, that is our birthright, that is where we will find our peace, our joy, our happiness, our creativity, our everything that energizes us. That is a guaranteed right here on the vanilla counter. But we've all been trained into going to chocolate, and we believe that chocolate is the best and it's the only one, and that it's going to hurt so much. Oh my God, I'm going to have to give up my chocolate. Yes, you're going to have to give it up, but you're going to have to give up also the addiction to thinking that that is not only the only one that was available, but that it was the best one that was available when you didn't even know this one over here was even available. How many of us grew up eating chocolate, never having tasted vanilla? I did. I grew up hearing about God all the time. God was scary. God was to be feared. All the things about hell and fire and brimstone, all that kind of stuff. God was over here all the time. Plain vanilla God was here all the time, available to me. All I needed to do was shift my perception and say, God, I want to know your ways. But I was too busy arguing with this chocolate God. So I chose, I started following this other chocolate God, or that one with sprinkles over there, or this one that had gummy worms in it, or this one that had whatever, whipped cream or whatever, made it look so appealing, never really understanding the essence of the truth of God. And you cannot find that. I point here, but it's not there. Although it is, it's here. And the only way to feel the truth of God is to see what the illusion costs us. And if it's so painful, if it's so unruly, then there has to be another way. It can, in a beautiful planet, when there's goodness in your heart, you cannot believe that it is okay for a government to be so secretive. Can you believe that it's taking us until this particular Congress to begin to introduce things about transparency, to begin to say that you can't send these bills for approval one day before they're supposed to be voted on, and they're 47,000 pages? What moron would ever think that it is okay to be a representative of the people and vote on something you never had actual time to read? Who does that? People who listen to their ego, who are too concerned about what others think about them, who don't want to go against the grain, who want to fit in, who have been paid off, who are participating in the game, and do not for 1 second think that the people that they are supposed to be representing matter. This is how small our blinders are. When we're selfish and greedy, we really don't care about anybody else except for ourselves. So whether you operate that way in your home as a stay-at-home mom, or maybe as a owner of a small business, or you own a big corporation, or you are an elected official, if you operate with your ego and you are substituting the reality of love for the made-up reality, the illusion of greed, then we have a problem. And humanity is at that point of problem. Again, not because God is judging it a bad thing, but because it's not sustainable. When we begin to collapse into the smallest possible option, we have to tear humanity down. We literally have to kill off one another, because only one's going to be able to win. When we are selfish, we are going to battle. It's going to appear that we are connected to more people. Little by little, we're going to battle each other until there's only one left. Meanwhile, over here, God is saying, let's extend the kingdom. We're going to go and extend and create more universes. We're going to continue to expand. Why? Because love does not take away. God's love extends, it gives. And in the giving, we receive the joy of participating on that ride. This ride is a ride to hell, because it is collapsing on itself. And all you have to do is look at don't even look at corporations. That's a good example, but look at governments. When we have governments of the people, by the people, all over the place, there's a better chance for each culture to remain self-expressed. But as we have been seeing, where more and more groups come together and then they decide collectively for those countries, and then more of those smaller groups come together and a few begin to decide for everybody. We have organizations like that. The World Health Organization makes decisions for everybody. How do they know what's best for Americans? How do they know what's best for the people in South Africa or in Bangladesh? They cannot possibly take every single cultures into account when they're making a decision of a one-size-fits-all medicine. The same thing with financial systems. When you have central banking, when you've got the World Economic Forum, unelected officials deciding what's best for everybody, you know what's coming. World domination to bring people in so that one man, one woman's going to stand. And if you don't think that that's true, then you don't understand the ego. This is the thing that for me is so fascinating. People who do not understand the ego defend these kinds of things as if these are people who care about us. They do. They care about you. They care about making sure that you're participating in their substitute for your reality. If you are okay doing that, you have free will. Here's the thing that's happening right now. In the middle of the passing of the dream, humanity is going to be bifurcating. It's happening. Two groups. That's how it's happening. It used to be we had all the political parties, and then we had the sports parties, and we had the socioeconomic parties. Now it's basically coming down to two sides. And I'm going to label them with a different label first, and then I'm going to give you the real name. The first label is freedom, the group that wants freedom no matter what. The other group is a group that wants safety. And these are willing to do whatever it takes for somebody to keep them safe. Now, how do you see those two groups? I'm going to tell you how the world sees them now. This group is the unvaccinated. This group is not willing to use their bodies as a guinea pig. This group is two sides, because not all in this group that are promoting safety are vaccinated. You see, in this group, you have those who wanted somebody else to keep them safe and were willing to have a shot put in their arm and be a guinea pig for something that had never been tested. But there's also the group that is inflicting that upon them, because the ego operates with two sides of the same coin, the victim and the bully. This group, the game for safety requires two types of players. The ones who think that they can take their power from others, and the ones who give their power to others. That is what is going to be passing. That's the dream that is passing. God created us equal. This is why the American Constitution is so loved around the world by the regular people, not by the governments, because the United States Constitution gives people too much power, even lets them defend their own power. But the passing of the dream is the completion of a cycle. If you study the law of one, the teachings of Ra, you probably have heard the terminology of we're coming upon the harvest. And those things are also mentioned in the Bible. We are about to separate the wheat from the chaff. What that means is that the wheat is that which is going to expand the kingdom, that which nourishes one another. We nourish each other through our sharing of the truths that we have discovered. Whether I do it here with you, whether you do it at home with your family, your friends, whether we go listen to Eckhart Tolle, who wrote A New Earth, we are sharing information that makes our lives better. Nobody's attempting to take any power from anybody else. It is pure freedom. You want to do that? Go. You want to go over there? You want to go get shot in the arm and be a guinea pig? It's okay. This side acknowledges freedom for everybody. This is the dream. That is the ending of this dream is the beginning of the new reality for the group that gets its sovereignty from God and God only. The other side that believes in safety is a competitive group, and it's all about it's about somebody is going to have to win at the expense of the other. This is why so many people who were getting their own shots said to others, if you don't take a shot, you don't care about me, you don't love people, you're not a good person if you don't take one of these things, because it is so about control. Well, we are in the clear now, because here's what's coming. Those who are not willing to participate are going to be really the difficult ones to control. But those who were willing to participate are going to give in to even bigger controls that are coming. The controls that are going to determine not only where you live, there's already 15-minute cities that are being activated around the world, primarily in some European states, but they've been in the works for decades. I've known about this for over 10 years that this was coming. So is the implanting of chips. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because under the hands of those who are benevolent, those are wonderful technologies, and we're going to see that, but it's going to come under the use of what is helpful and supportive to humanity. But what is happening right now has been in the works for thousands of years, and it is a process of world domination. And you might be thinking, what is A Course in Miracles teacher talking about domination? Well, let me tell you why I'm talking about domination, because we are passing the dream of being dominated. That is what the ego is all about. And if you want to end that dream, you must stop substituting reality. Stop looking for something outside of you to tell you who you are, what you should desire, what should make you happy. because those who like to control are not going to give up attempting to control, and it's going to intensify. They know the dream is passing for them as it is for those who don't want to participate in that dream anymore. There is a group that understands what is happening right now in this bifurcation. And here's the beautiful thing. The creator that created all of us equal doesn't punish anybody for playing the game any way that we want to. So right now, your work is to find the source of love, the source of joy, the source of happiness within you. And you will have tapped into that when you reach the place where you are clear that everything that you do is going to be for the greater good of all. It has to be for the greater good of all. You're not going to judge because it's not for the greater good of all. You're going to be open-minded because it's for the greater good of all. You're going to be willing to try new things because it's for the greater good of all. The old is falling down. It's breaking down. It's not sustainable. So are you going to be a creator of the new? Well, you have to do it by understanding what you're leaving behind. Over here, vanilla, infinite possibilities. Chocolate, it's only one way. Pretty murky, pretty dark. And that's what we have called reality for a very long time. But we have substituted reality for this thing that has created a veil in front of our eyes, that has made things so murky, made things so difficult to see clearly, that we have been given beautiful texts and we were told these religious texts or these history books or this information was true. And when you begin to see that the ego makes everything up, it's going to be a fascinating time when those who have the ability to see the passing of the dream, witness it. We're going to watch it. Those who are awake, that's why we have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. If you are still judging, if you are still in any way, shape, or form spending a second of your time in fear, in doubt, in guilt, in shame, you are not free yet. That's why it's so important to be honest with ourselves when we are moving through this process, because when we are honest, then we can help each other move along. Nobody that wants safety is going to apply for freedom. It's just not going to happen. Why? Because they don't believe. Their minds are so conditioned into thinking that their safety comes from external sources, from the government outside, from the medical system outside, the others outside, the World Health Organization, the World Economic, they're going to take care of you because they love you. So that group is not interested in freedom. Leave them alone. Let them find their safety, because they're going to create a reality that is going to give them the consequences of choosing a substitute reality. But they can. They're a creative source just as you are. So the first sentence, here we are almost at the top of the hour, we're getting into the first sentence. So we may not get very far here today. But the first sentence here says, to substitute is to accept instead. If you would but consider exactly what this entails, you would perceive at once how much at variance this is with the goal the Holy Spirit has given you and would accomplish for you. You know, we're in chapter 18. We already had 17 chapters before to set the stage of what the Holy Spirit is all about. The Holy Spirit's about freedom. It's about love. It's about gentleness. It's about creation. It's about expansion. So we know that this is what vanilla is all about. So when you accept a substitute, you are looking for something other than the real thing. A substitute is a copy, a Xerox, something that is other than the real thing. So we are already in trouble when we have accepted a substitute. So if you want to consider what that means, here we're being told it's at variance. It is not in agreement with the original. It is not in agreement. This is why you cannot sell an original Van Gogh for the same amount of money that you sell a copy of a Van Gogh. It's a substitute. Well, Course in Miracles wants us to understand that when we are listening to the substitute, yes, it might look a lot like the Van Gogh. Yes, that chocolate may taste really yummy. I'm mixing metaphors here, but that's okay. I'm a creative being. I can do whatever I want. Over here, We have been deluded into believing that this is some form of God that cares about us, because God is outside of us, punishing us, angry with us. Sometimes it's happy with us. It's like Santa Claus that brings us a present every now and again, but it's not sustainable. That's the lie that we have been fed. To attempt to substitute for the truth of a God that is there, always available and accessible, because it's inside of us. Sentence number 3 says to substitute is to choose between renouncing one aspect of the sonship in favor for the other. So we have to make a choice that we are going to reject this. Look at how many people who have been talking about freedom, who have been doing their very best to help humanity understand that there were other options besides those particular shots that were handed out forcibly in many cases. Well, a lot of people didn't want to hear about what do you mean that there's another option? I trust my government. They have my back. All right. If you believe that they have your back, then you're going to have, it's because, not because you did anything wrong, but because that's the reality you want to experience. Let them be. Let them be. They're not willing to listen to those who may have moved on this bridge, on this passing of the dream, a step or 2 or 10, maybe ahead of them, who could help them see what's going on. The time is over, really, pretty much over, for convincing anybody to cross the bridge. There's only time for those who willingly, because it takes too much effort to convince somebody, who willingly go, I want what they're having. I really want to have more peace in my life. And they will cross the bridge. You don't have to convince them that freedom is better than safety. They will come to that on their own. But those who really want to have an experience of safety as their reality, they have to give up being sovereign. So let them be. That's actually how free they are, that they can choose to not be free. As we are all created equal. We are all created with the same creative powers. Course in Miracles made that so clear to me. Every one of us has the same creative power to create with God, which is to co-create. Not my will, but God's will. Father, what would you have me do? That way of co-creation always leads to joy, because it's expansive. All benefit. Here, it's about contraction. And those who choose that want to have an experience on that particular ride, and it's okay. So it goes on to say that when you substitute it, you're choosing something else. Let them choose. It is absolutely okay. Sentence 4 says, for this special purpose, one is judged more valuable and the other is replaced by him. When we choose the way of safety, we are deliberately saying, I don't want freedom. I don't want to think on my own. I want somebody to think for me. I don't want to come to know how to heal my body by listening to shamans or listening to holistic people or listening to non-traditional. I don't want that. I want this one. I want the pill. I want the shot. I want, the chip. This is what I want. We've got to get clear that when somebody chooses this, they have made a choice not to do the other. We have to respect that choice. Our brothers and our sisters, holy brothers and sisters, all have the ability to decide what is best for them as we are choosing for ourselves. It's my daughter's kitty cat there. All right. So it is very important that we understand that to substitute is to choose between. So everybody, wherever they're at, is by choice. The next sentence says, for this special purpose, one is judged more valuable and the other is replaced by him. This one matters, not that one. The relationship in which the substitution occurred is thus fragmented and its purpose split accordingly. To fragment is to exclude, and substitution is the strongest defense the ego has for separation. What this means is when people are willing to follow the voice for God and they move in a direction, co-creating a new earth, co-creating something, whatever that it might be that they prefer, everybody moves in unison. There is a respect for everybody. Nobody's trying to convince anybody else. We all trust that you're going to listen to your own guidance. So there is a total, complete, unified movement, even if it appears to look different. It's very unified because you only want what's best for each and every person. You sincerely desire the best for all because you're not operating for yourself alone. It's for the greater good of all. But when you move down this path, to use the shots, the vaccines, because it's such an easy example. For those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, it's an easy example. You move down this path. Here's what it's saying. The relationship in which the substitution occurred is thus fragmented. Then we have 3 different shots or 5 different shots or a bunch of different shots. And then people are comparing, I got this shot, you got that shot, you got that shot. And, pretty crazy. So we've got all these different things to separate us, to fragment us. And then inside of that, there are those who did the 1 booster, the 2 booster, or the 4 boosters, or the 47 boosters. So we've got the groups that, oh, you did 4? Oh, good, I'll hang out with you. Oh, you only did 2? I'm not going to go hang out with you. It fragments because it's always greedy and selfish. It's always for my good alone only. Now, I do want to say a lot of people went and took those shots and participated because they really thought it was the right thing to do. They were not blaming the ones who didn't do it. I have plenty of friends who did that. Maybe they have come to a place where there is a questioning, maybe I should have listened, or maybe I should have researched. They don't need to listen to anybody else because those who chose not to do that did their own research, looked into it to a certain degree, or trusted people who that they believed were telling them the truth, medical professionals in some cases. That's where I went. I went to medical professionals that I trusted, that were not beholden to the medical system. I went to the ones that were independent in their own ways, willing to risk their licenses because they were not going to give in for what they knew was true. And when I found enough of those saying the same thing, to me, that solidified my scientific need for what I was looking for. But many over here did not even go question, did not even look into it. As a matter of fact, took shots that even the pharmacist, even the person who gave it to them, even the doctor's office did not even know what was in them. So that's a choice. That's a choice to do that, blindly following what somebody has told them to do. So when we looked at that fragment, to fragment is to exclude, and the substitution is the strongest defense the ego has for separation. What this really means and why it's so important to understand. When the ego begins to tell you that this thing is your source of well-being, it is substituting the innate immunity within your system. When it is telling you that this doctor is more knowledgeable than your own inner innate immune system, it is telling you to substitute listening, or who you listen to, what you listen to. When you're told out here that this multi-billion gazillion dollar corporation making all these profits is a sign of what is really truly worthy, it's a substitute for your self-worth. So the more that the ego substitutes God with the Pope, substitutes authority with a president, substitutes well-being with forced mandatory stuff, substitutes natural foods with GMOs, when you begin to see substitutions for that which God created naturally, you know the ego is involved, and it's not going to end it's not going to be pretty. Now, many of us have had many years playing this game inside of the substitute for reality, and it was pretty damn good. I lived in the East Cobb suburbs. I had a beautiful house. I had a house in the cabins for a while. I had a house at the lake for a couple of years. My family traveled. We had all kinds of fun things. I had lived very, very comfortable. All of those things were substitutes for me coming to know the voice of God inside of me, because I was constantly chasing, well, if I go there, I'll be happy. If I go here, I'll be happy. If I go here, I'll be peaceful. If I get this, I'll be safe. If I get this, I'll be free. all of it substitutes for what cannot be substituted, can only be found when you make the trip inside. To come inside is to let go of everything you've been taught on the outside to be true. That's why it's very difficult to wake up, because you have to admit that you've been wrong about just about everything that you believed. We have had moments where we knew the truth, and most of them were when we were little kids. And throughout our adulthood, we've had glimpses, but then we retreat into safety, because the freedom of following our dreams sometimes is very scary. So I'm going to complete here. We'll continue next week with this one, but the passing of the dream is a real thing. You're either going to experience the passing of the dream armed with awareness, empowered with awareness, with truth, understanding what is happening, the two voices, the two choices. Either you will move through this bifurcation, seeing clearly the two and knowing you've made a choice for that which is not only eternal, but is what feels the best. And it is what's going to allow us to co-create heaven on earth. Or you're making the choice to stay where you're at because safety is important to you, because you haven't built your house on a solid foundation with God. So you don't trust God for your safety. You still believe that your safety comes from your decisions about who you assign your safety to. You cannot have a relationship with God while you're in charge of the rules. You can only have a relationship with God when you say, not my will anymore. Only your will be done. And to do that, you have to trust that God is a loving, benevolent God. So you got to clean up all of your misconceptions about God, trained into us by the very systems that did not want us to have a relationship with God because they needed us to follow them. Have you noticed how religion and government go hand in hand for thousands of years everywhere? There's a reason. They knew how to control minds. We didn't know how our minds were being controlled, but we did choose to incarnate on a planet of mind control. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you see clearly, you want to do differently. And that's what these teachings are for those who want to ascend out of the darkness of the old ways and rise above it to see more options and then be able to at least make an informed choice. If you are here and you haven't taken the time to see what Course in Miracles is about, or mystical teachings, or what the ego is about, then you are not curious. Leave those people alone. But if somebody is asking you questions, there's an invitation. They are seeing you as an example of the frequency that is being emanated from your beingness. And it's so appealing, but they want a little bit of it. That's your opportunity. So extend the kingdom of heaven wherever you go. Share it with those who are asking about it. All right. With that, this particular transmission is complete. I don't feel like there's anything else to say here. I want to open it up. If you have thoughts, comments, questions, nuggets that you picked up, I would love to hear that from you. So please share if you want to.
I think today was just extremely important, or where I am right now. And it just helped me ground more in how I feel about what's going on. So thank you.
Thank you, Miss Dondra. I'm so glad that was what you needed to hear. Me too. Thank you.
Laina, thank you so very much for this wonderful lesson. And yeah, it just, simple. And I learned a lot today, and just understanding and just puzzles getting together, and wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Julia. So glad that you joined us. You joined me in Colorado.
No.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. And you, Miss Kat, did you get some nuggets today?
Well, yes. When do I not? It's a particularly simple but profound reminder of what the ego tries to do, and what our and our function as a child of God and as a teacher of God is to go within and to accept the miracles that are within. And the more we can give up the safety, because I think I know for sure I had safety issues, and I won't say that I still don't have some safety issues. However, I can see that it's a false sense of safety, so that I'm willing and want to give it up and go more to the freedom side, and to look inside for my source of peace, and because that's, focus a lot on that source of peace and joy. So I know what I really want in my life. I really want peace. So this is the joy. This is where I have to be.
You have to be. And with peace comes trust, comes acceptance, comes tolerance, comes joy. I mean, peaceful people are joyful people. So all of those things work together when you understand that this is just a temporary experience. We're just on like a beautiful stage here called planet Earth. We're playing roles. We got identified with the roles, and we're being asked to remember that we are the actors, not only the actors, but the directors of our own reality. So stop substituting a fake reality when you can go to the real, to the truth that is true always and is real, cannot be threatened, which is that we are eternal beings and we are loving. This contraction, temporary contraction, has got to be boring at a certain point of realization. It's like acting like immature, schoolyard kids. It's time for us to graduate, to mature into more which is so interesting, because we're maturing but returning to our childlike roots. So, well, I'm so glad that you guys got nuggets, and whoever watches this, if you enjoy this, please share it with others. Help me promote my work so that more can hear it. But, if it doesn't get shared, it doesn't get shared. It's okay. This is all about realizing that we're all being met wherever we're at. God is grand. It's meeting everybody where we're at. And no matter whatever circumstance we're in, if we want another way, all we need to do is ask God, please give me another way, another voice, another message, and it will be done, because those who want assistance to move through the passing of the dream are being assisted. Those who don't want it are being left alone out of respect for the creative power that they have. So with that, thank you so much. I love you all. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, Laina. Thank you.
Bye-bye.